Before I say a single word, I need you to understand something. What you're about to hear is not motivation. It is not a lecture. It is not a collection of quotes dressed in philosophy. What I'm about to tell you took me decades to understand, and when I finally understood it, I wept, not from sadness, from the sheer, overwhelming relief of a man who has finally found the answer to a question that has haunted him his entire life. The question every human being carries, whether they admit it or not. Why? Why does suffering come to people who deserve better? Why does the path to greatness feel like it runs directly through destruction? Why does God, if you believe in something greater than yourself, seem to break the very people he has chosen? And why does every great man I ever studied, Carnegie, Ford, Edison, Lincoln, carry in their eyes the unmistakable weight of a man who has been completely, mercilessly, and deliberately broken before he was built? I have spent my life searching for that answer, and I found it. And by the time this is over, you will never look at your pain the same way again. Let me tell you about the lowest moment of my life. Not the poverty of my childhood, not the loss of my mother at 9 years old, not the professional failures or the financial collapse or the years when the work of my life seemed to be disappearing into silence. I mean the moment when everything fell apart simultaneously. My finances destroyed, my reputation questioned, my closest relationships fracturing under the pressure of a mission the world had not yet decided to reward. I remember sitting in a room, alone, with nothing but the sound of my own breathing and the crushing weight of a question I could not escape. What is the point? Not a suicidal thought, something almost worse, the thought of a man who has given everything, who has sacrificed comfort, security, and normalcy in pursuit of something he believed with his whole soul, and received in return nothing but loss. Have you ever been in that room? Not that physical room, that internal room, the room where your faith has been stripped down to its last fiber, where your confidence has been so thoroughly dismantled that you cannot remember what certainty felt like, where you look at the wreckage of your plans and your pride and your carefully constructed vision of the future, and you genuinely do not know if you have anything left. If you have been in that room, this is for you, because what I discovered in that room changed everything I believed about God, about suffering, about success, and about the hidden architecture of a great life. There is a principle I never included in Think and Grow Rich. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I wasn't sure the world was ready for it. I'm ready to speak it now. God does not build the men he has chosen, not first. First, he breaks them completely strategically, with a precision that looks from the inside like pure destruction. And most men in the middle of that breaking make the most catastrophic mistake of their lives. They conclude that the breaking is the end of the story. They look at what is falling apart and they decide that falling apart is their destiny. They quit, they surrender, they crawl back to smallness because smallness at least feels safe, and they never discover what the breaking was actually for. Let me tell you what I now know to be true. A diamond is carbon, the same element found in the graphite of a common pencil. There is no chemical difference between the carbon in a diamond and the carbon in graphite. None. The only difference is what happened to it. The diamond was subjected to pressure so extreme, so sustained, so utterly without mercy, that its very molecular structure was reorganized, compressed from something ordinary into something that could catch light in a way nothing else on earth can. That pressure did not damage the diamond. That pressure was the process by which the diamond became what it was always capable of being. Now I want you to sit with that, because you, the person receiving this right now, you are not being damaged. You are being compressed. The losses are not evidence of your failure. The broken relationships are not evidence of your unworthiness. The collapsed plans are not evidence that your dream was too large. They are evidence that something is being reorganized inside you, and something that cannot be built through comfort, something that cannot be developed through ease, something that only emerges, has only ever emerged through the specific, targeted, transformative pressure of being completely broken open. I studied Abraham Lincoln, a man who lost his mother as a child, who lost his first love to illness, who failed in business twice, who had a nervous breakdown so severe that his friends hid sharp objects from him out of fear for his safety, who lost election after election 7 times before the nation finally handed him the most impossible leadership position in its history. And he led that nation through its darkest hour with a grace, a depth, a wisdom, and a moral authority that historians still struggle to fully explain. Where did that come from? It did not come from privilege. It did not come from education. It did not come from a life that treated him gently. It came from the breaking. Every loss carved something deeper into Lincoln. Every failure stripped away another layer of ego, of pretense, of the fragile confidence that collapses under pressure. Every dark night of the soul forced him inward to a place where most men never go, where the only thing left to rely on is something deeper than personality, something that does not break, something that was always there waiting beneath the layers of pride and fear and self-constructed identity to be discovered. That something, I believe with everything I am, is the God within you. Now let me be precise about what I mean when I say that. I'm not speaking of religion. I'm not asking you to adopt a theology or affiliate with a doctrine. I'm speaking about something that every tradition, every philosophy, every great teacher in the history of human civilization has pointed toward, using different words, different metaphors, different frameworks, but always pointing at the same thing, the infinite intelligence that lives within every human being, the part of you that is not afraid, the part of you that is not broken by circumstance, the part of you that stands behind the fear, behind the doubt, behind the personality, behind the story, unchanged, undefeated, unconquerable. Andrew Carnegie called it the master mind. Edison called it his laboratory of the subconscious. Lincoln called it the better angels of our nature. Every mystic who ever walked this earth called it something different, but they were all describing the same territory, the interior kingdom, the place inside a man where God has planted something that no external force, no failure, no loss, no humiliation, no circumstance can ever reach. And here is the truth that will either set you free or terrify you, depending on how deeply you hear it. Most men spend their entire lives living on the surface. They build their identity from the outside, from their achievements, from other people's opinions, from the number in their bank account, from the title on their door and the size of their house, and the approval in the eyes of people whose own lives are built on the same fragile foundation. And then when the achievement collapses, when the opinion shifts, when the account empties, they have nothing left because they never went deep enough to find the thing that cannot be taken. The breaking is God's way of forcing you to go deeper. I want you to think about every painful season of your life, not to relive it, not to wallow in it, but to look at it from the distance you now have and ask yourself honestly, who were you before that season? And who did you become because of it? Because I have asked this question of every man and woman I have ever studied deeply. And without exception, without a single exception, in 500 of the greatest achievers I ever researched, the most important growth of their lives happened in the season that felt while they were inside it like pure devastation. Carnegie lost everything before he built everything. Edison was deaf, broke, and dismissed before he lit up the world. Ford was bankrupt twice before the Model T. Every man I studied who built something genuinely extraordinary, genuinely lasting, genuinely meaningful, had first been broken in a way that the world would have considered final. They were broken, and then because they did not quit, because they went inward instead of outward, because they stopped trying to rebuild what was destroyed and started asking what was being revealed, they were built into something the unbroken version of themselves could never have become. This is not coincidence. This is law. Now, let me tell you the most dangerous part of this truth. The breaking only produces the building if you respond correctly. And most people in the middle of the breaking respond incorrectly. They respond with bitterness, and bitterness is the acid that destroys the vessel it is meant to wound. They respond with the identity of the victim. And the victim identity, once fully adopted, becomes the most comfortable prison a human being can inhabit, because it comes with a lifetime supply of justification for staying small. They respond by becoming hard, not strong hard, closed armor defended against the very vulnerability that the breaking was trying to develop in them. Because here is what the breaking is actually doing when it is received correctly. It is destroying your false self. The self that was built from fear, the self that was constructed to manage other people's perceptions, the self that was assembled from achievement and approval and external validation. That self, the ego, the persona, the performance, is not you. It was never you. It was the costume you put on because you were afraid that the real you, the deep you, the you beneath the achievement and the title and the carefully curated image was not enough. The breaking removes the costume, forcibly, painfully, without asking your permission, And what it reveals, if you have the courage to look, is something extraordinary, something that was there from the beginning, something that your circumstances never created and can therefore never destroy, the God within you. I want to talk to you about something I have never heard anyone else say clearly. There is a kind of peace that most people have never experienced. Not the peace of having everything figured out, not the peace of circumstances finally aligning, not the peace of other people's approval finally arriving. I'm talking about the peace of a man who has been so thoroughly broken, who has lost so much, who has had so many layers stripped away that he has finally stopped fighting for the survival of things that were never meant to survive. And in that surrender, not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of ego, he discovers something beneath the wreckage, a stillness, a ground, a place inside himself that was never touched by any of it. That place, that unmovable, unshakable, eternal place, is where your real power lives, not in your achievements, not in your plans, not in your reputation or your resources or your relationships. And in that place, and once you find it, once you have genuinely touched the floor of your own being, the world loses its power over you, not because you become indifferent, not because you stop caring or stop feeling or stop wanting, but because you have found something inside yourself that is larger than any outcome, and a man who carries that is a man that circumstance cannot break, because circumstance already did, and he survived. And in surviving, he discovered that he was never what he thought he was. He was not his achievements. He was not his failures. He was not his past or his pain or his carefully constructed plans. He was the one who remained when all of it was gone. And that one, that deep, permanent, undefeatable one, is what I'm asking you to become acquainted with. Now, let me give you something practical, because philosophy without application is simply sophisticated procrastination. The man who has found the God within him, the man who has been broken and rebuilt from the inside out, behaves differently in the world. And I want to describe that behavior precisely, because it is the behavior I'm asking you to practice. Beginning today, whether or not the breaking is complete yet, he does not react. He responds. There is an infinite universe of difference between these two words. The reactive man is controlled by his environment. An insult lands and he crumbles or he retaliates. And a setback arrives and he collapses or he rages. An opportunity disappears and he despairs. Every external event reaches directly into him and pulls a lever, and he responds not from his values, but from his wounds. The man who has found the God within him has created distance between stimulus and response, not emotional numbness, not the cold detachment of a man who has shut down to protect himself, but the measured, grounded, sovereign response of a man who knows at a level deeper than thought that nothing happening outside him can touch what lives inside him. He has been broken, and he discovered in the breaking that the breaking could not reach the deepest part of him. And now, knowing what survives the worst, he walks through the world differently, and with a stillness that other people feel as power, with a patience that other people interpret as confidence, with a groundedness that makes him unmovable in the rooms where everyone else is being swept away. This is not a character you are born with. It is a character you are forged into, through exactly the kind of fire you may be standing in right now. I want to speak directly to the person who is in the breaking right now, not the person who has passed through it, not the person anticipating it, the person for whom this season feels like it will never end, the person who has prayed and planned and persisted, and still, the circumstances have not shifted the way they need to. The person who is exhausted in a way that sleep does not fix. The person who has begun in their most private moments to question whether they were wrong about themselves all along. I need you to hear me. You are not wrong about yourself. You're in the middle of the most important chapter of your life, and the fact that you cannot see the purpose of it from inside it is not evidence that there is no purpose. It is evidence that the purpose is larger than your current vantage point can contain. When a building is being constructed, when the foundation is being laid and the steel is being welded and the walls are being raised, the construction site looks like chaos, rubble, noise, disorder. A man who has never seen construction before might walk past that site and conclude that something is being destroyed. He would be wrong. And something is being built, and the chaos is not evidence of destruction. It is evidence of process. Your life right now, if it looks like a construction site, is not being destroyed. It is being built. And what is being built is a version of you that the comfortable, untested, unbroken version of you could never have carried, could never have been. Let me tell you what the God within you is waiting for. Not for your circumstances to improve, not for the plan to become clear, not for the fear to disappear or the doubt to resolve or the evidence to arrive. It is waiting for your permission to stop identifying with the surface, your permission to stop building your sense of self on things that can be taken, earn your permission to go deeper, to be still, to face the emptiness that most men spend their entire lives running from, and discover that the emptiness is not empty, that at the very center of the silence, behind the noise of fear and desire and ambition and anxiety, there is a presence, steady, limitless, unconditional, a presence that has been there your entire life through every failure, through every loss, through every moment you were certain you were unworthy of the life you desired. It was there. It is there now. And when you finally stop running long enough to feel it, it will change you more profoundly than any strategy, any book, any mentor, any opportunity ever could, because it is the source, not the vehicle, not the map, not the path. The source. The infinite intelligence I spent my life studying in the men who built the world. It was never their intelligence. It was never their talent. It was never their strategy. It was this, the God within them, accessed through the breaking, amplified by faith, expressed through desire, directed by a definite chief aim, moving through them with a power that no merely human force can generate. Now let me tell you what happens to a man who finds this. The world does not become easier. I want to be precise about this because the world will try to sell you a version of spiritual awakening that promises the removal of difficulty. That is not what I am describing. And the man who finds the God within him does not suddenly live a life free of obstacle and adversity and suffering. What changes is not his circumstances. What changes is his relationship to his circumstances. The same event that would have destroyed him before he now receives as information. The same loss that would have defined him before, he now metabolizes as fuel. The same rejection that would have confirmed his worst fears before he now understands as redirection. Not because he has become indifferent to pain, but because he has found something inside himself that pain cannot reach. And from that place, that unassailable, unbreakable, divine place, he operates with a clarity that fear cannot cloud, with a patience that urgency cannot steal, and with a vision that setback cannot extinguish, and the results, the external, measurable, undeniable results in his work, his wealth, his relationships, his impact, become the natural consequence of a man operating from his deepest self rather than his most frightened self. This is what Carnegie meant when he said organized effort. This is what Edison meant when he spoke of the invisible workshop of the mind. This is what Lincoln accessed in the silence of his most desperate hours. They had all, through different paths, through different degrees of breaking, found the God within, and they built from there. I'm going to ask you to do something, not tomorrow, right now. Wherever you are, whatever device you're using to receive this, I want you to stop. Stop performing and stop planning. Stop managing the image. Stop running from the silence. Just stop, and for 60 seconds, simply be still. Not to meditate in any formal sense, not to achieve any particular state, simply to acknowledge in the quietness of your own interior that beneath the fear and the doubt and the exhaustion and the unfinished plans and the accumulated weight of everything you carry, something in you is still standing. Something in you was not destroyed by what you have been through. Something in you, quiet, patient, undefeated, is still here. That something is not your personality. It is not your ambition. It is not your talent or your plans or your past. It is the part of you that God placed in you before the world got its hands on you. And it is the part that the breaking was meant to reveal. It is the part that when you finally learn to build from it will produce something so far beyond what your frightened, ego-driven, approval-seeking self could have constructed that you will look back on the breaking with something that feels almost like gratitude. Not because the pain was easy, but because you will finally understand what it was for. The men who built the world were not men who were spared from breaking. They were men who were broken completely and chose in the wreckage to discover what remained. And what remained was everything. It was always everything. The suffering did not diminish them, it revealed them. And what was revealed, that deep, sovereign, God-given essence, directed through desire, organized through planning, amplified through faith and sustained through persistence, built the world you inhabit today. You were not placed here to live on the surface. You were not placed here to manage appearances and accumulate comfort and die quietly, having never tested the full depth of what you carry. You were placed here to be broken open. You were placed here to discover in the breaking what cannot be broken. You were placed here to build from that place, to live from that place, to lead from that place, not from your fear, not from your wounds, not from the desperate, grasping surface self that the world trained you to believe was all you were, and from the God within you, from the limitless, unconquerable, eternal presence that has been waiting patiently, without judgment, through every mistake and every failure and every moment you forgot it was there for you to come home. The world does not need another man who is merely successful. The world needs men who have been broken all the way down to their foundation and discovered that the foundation is God and built from there. Those are the men who change things. Those are the men whose names outlive them. Those are the men who, in a room full of noise and fear and confusion, stand still because they have found something inside themselves that nothing outside them can disturb. That man is not beyond you. He is not a different category of human being, and he is not someone else's destiny. He is the man you are in the process of becoming right now, in this season, in this breaking, in this exact, painful, disorienting, magnificent moment of your life. The God within you is not waiting for you to be worthy. He is not waiting for you to have it figured out. He is not waiting for the fear to resolve or the plan to clarify or the circumstances to align. He is waiting for you to stop looking outside for what has always been inside. And when you stop, when you finally, completely, and without reservation stop, you will find what every great man before you found in their darkest hour, that you were never alone, that the breaking was always building, that the loss was always leading somewhere. Learn that the God within you has been walking with you every step of the way. Nothing that is meant for you can be kept from you, and nothing that breaks you can break what you actually are. Go find that, build from there, and do not stop. Not ever. Not for anything. The world is waiting for what only you, forged by exactly this fire, can bring to it, and it has been waiting long enough.